Relationships. We've been talking about that the last couple Sundays. We're going to continue. Let me build a platform. So to have a relationship, the first thing we got to do is we got to know who we are. That's the most critical thing. Thing is that we're whole, perfect, and complete, just as we are, and we're unique. That key word is everything. We are unique. We're not like anyone else. We're not to be like anyone else. We're to be unique. Understanding that we're unique means what? That we're part of a whole. We're a piece within the consciousness of all that exists. We're part of the allness that is we call God, call it Spirit, call it universal mind, call it Harry, call it Sally. It doesn't matter what you call it because a name is irrelevant to it. You notice I'm saying it. It's not a he or a she. It's an it. It's a power and a presence that is expressing itself infinitely through each of us. So we are it. And in us is all of it. We can do everything that it does based on the power of our thought. Then what we decided then is we had to know who we were. And we had to understand what were our values. And you'll understand here as I have bought into the idea, the premise that Dr. John DeMartini teaches, is that until we understand our values, we don't know who we are. We don't know our uniqueness. And then we're blindly flowing back and forth, and we're doing whatever anyone else is doing or what the consciousness of society is doing instead of being our unique self. And so once we've identified who we are, that we're this unique expression, now we come and understand, so what is a relationship? Here's the key thing. All relationships begin and end with self-love. That's the key premise about it. This is what I believe with my whole heart and soul. All relationships begin in self-love because the only amount of love that we can have for ourselves can we give and share with another. So we've got this bogus illusion out there. And I get this illusion all the time, and I'm really sick of it. And the sick of it is every time I go somewhere and I introduce my wife, they say, that's your better half. I go, poppycock. There's no such thing as a better half. See the illusion there? Or what is the other one? I've got to find my partner because if I find the right partner, it will make me whole. Poppycock. You're neglecting the very essence of what we teach. You're neglecting the fact that you're already whole. And to not think you're whole, to think that you need someone else, diminishes who you are, and you're no longer seeing yourself through the eyes of God, which is a whole and perfect divine expression. Now, as a whole, perfect divine expression of the one, you're here to express as a whole with another person who is already whole. So it's not about completion. It's about that, okay, I'm on this journey of self-discovery. I think I want to dance with this person, and when I dance with this person, how am I going to communicate with them? You see, that's the key thing. This is where relationships get mucked up. The first thing is they don't know who they are. They've not determined their values. Then from there, once we enter into a relationship, an adult relationship, a spiritual relationship, it's about knowing, how do I communicate? So the first thing we do is we communicate to and from values. In other words, I know what my top 5 values are. So everything I do, I'm communicating from that. Now, to be in relationship, to be in a real relationship with someone, I have to know what their top 5 values are. Now, when I embrace their 5 values and I see how my 1 supports their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I see how my 2 supports their 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And then I see how theirs supports me. Now, when I've got those values interlinked like this, I have a relationship that is deep, it is meaningful, and now it can be conscious. Until we've identified values and we've linked them, there's no consciousness about the relationship. Because what? We're doing everything by happenstance. Well, maybe they'll like this. Maybe they'll like that. Here's one thing you can rest assured in. People will always do what's best for their highest values. They will never do anything for another one that's not in service of their highest values. So you can see where a person is and see where their values are by how they're interacting. That's the most critical thing. But when you're aware of it and you know it, you've had it. So if you're in a relationship and you've not identified your values, it's the first thing you got to do. Because without that, you're just playing this game. And this game ends in the statistics that are out there about how relationships go. They say 1 out of 2 marriages end in divorce. I don't know that that's true. But think about it. If 1 out of 2 marriages end in divorce, what about all the other relationships that led up to that? There's a lot of discovery going on. How's that for a term? So it's about communicating to the values to the other person. So what is a caring relationship? A caring relationship means I'm going to communicate from my highest values in a way that your highest values can hear it. That's pretty cool. That's really cool. A non-caring relationship is one where I communicate my highest values and I don't give a darn about yours. Or from the other standpoint, I subordinate myself to your values so I can fit in. Now we've really got the guilt and the blame game going on, and that just never works. That's the he said, she said, he said, back and forth 1,000 times. I will say this, because I got a rise over here. Anytime we're trying to convince someone of something, we're only trying to convince ourselves. Because when we know something, we say it once and we're done. Because we know it at the very core of who we are. So now we're going to go on and we're going to say, okay, so we're in a romantic relationship. You got to know the love languages. Because if you're sitting there trying to communicate something to someone and their love language is gifts and you're giving them words of praise, guess what? They're not feeling it. If my wife comes to me and wants to communicate with me on this idea, oh, Lee, she's giving me all these words of praise, it doesn't mean squat to me. That's my number 4 love languages. Now, if she touches me on the shoulder, gently rubs my back, she's got my attention because my number 1 love language is physical touch. My second love language is quality time. For me, a moment of intimate connection, looking into the eyes, sharing something, that's important. That, to me, really lifts me. But you want to buy me gifts? Don't waste your time. That's last. Come and talk to me and look into my eyes. That'll be the greatest gift you can give. But you see, that's me. But I have to know what my wife's are. And her number 1 is what? Acts of service. So if I see that she's being depleted and I want to support her, then I'm going to find a way of being of service. I like to twist it and say physically, but no, that's not what I meant. An act of service that she would appreciate in that moment. See, but I couldn't do that unless I knew what her languages were. So first off, we've got to know the values. That's the most important one. Then if you're in a romantic relationship, then it's the love languages so that you can really help to support and feed each other. Then the third aspect of it is you got to have some agreements. This is really, really critical because each of us has something where we're not tapped in to the oneness and we feel insecure. Well, wherever that is an insecurity, we've got to then form an agreement with our partner about that. So Jean and I have agreements. One of our agreements is that she comes first or I come first when we let the partner know. Does that make sense? So what that does is, if you can't tell, I'm an extrovert. So I go to a party, I move and I shake. I'm all over the place. But if Jean comes to me before the party and says to me, tonight I really want you to be close to me. Well, that tells me that she wants to be first, so I will not be moving and shaking as much. But if she doesn't give me that request, then I'm out there doing my thing. She's her own individual self. You see where I'm getting at? The other thing is sometimes people, because of past experiences, they really need a relationship that is safe. I can't tell you how many times that word safe comes up. And safety takes its form in different ways for different people. So you would have an agreement with the person. In order for me to feel safe, this must happen. Can we have an agreement about that? And so once you've established your agreements, like Jean and I have 5, you can have 6, 7, whatever you want, but you have agreements that you've agreed to. Now guess what? Because you've got agreements, you never have to talk about it again. You live to the agreements. You see, it makes it easy. It takes out all the guesswork. Well, I wonder if he's doing this because wait, I got this need. Is he going against that? No, we have an agreement. So you never have to question again. Because you have to, one of the key things in a relationship, you have to learn to trust. And you're not trusting the other person. Did you hear that? You're trusting yourself. Because the most important thing that you're doing when you're having a relationship is you're having an inner dialogue, an inner communication with yourself. And you're talking to yourself, am I fully living up to my 5 highest values? Am I fully communicating my love language effectively? Am I fully seeing the values of others? Am I fully seeing the love language of others? Have I clearly defined my agreements to others? And have I seen their agreements? And am I living? Am I cohesive? Am I congruent with it? You see, so I'm always communicating with myself against these 3 ways of communicating. Now, in light of that, let's go to the keys to meaningful. It's got to be heart-centered. It's not about the ego. It's about coming from the heart. It's about that feeling nature. It's about the feminine energy that's within everyone. And the heart-centered wants to expand. It wants to grow. It wants to connect. It wants to feel. It wants to know the deepest aspects of people. And not only that, it wants to share the deepest aspects of you. It's got to be open, honest, and I say direct. I say direct because if you don't know Lee, Lee is direct. A lot of times people say, Lee, you're a little too direct. No, that's Lee. You see, that's me being authentic. That's me living up to my values. I don't believe in playing games. I don't believe that type of thing. You hear about, watch all the movies of all the games that people play in relationships. Why waste your time? If I can say something in a sentence and get through an hour and a half of BS, why wouldn't I do that? Why would I waste my time? My time is valuable. So if I can communicate something really clearly, crisply, and we have our agreements set up, we know the values, we know the love languages, am I doing anything to hurt someone? No, I'm just being effectively communicating. I'm open, I'm honest, and I'm direct. Here's the big one. When you're in any type of relationship, you've got to ask for what you want when you want it. Because you cannot read another person's mind, nor can they read your minds. You see, when you're putting it out there and you're saying it to them, this is what I would really want now. They have the right to say no, but at least they've heard it. But until you ask, you can't receive. It's like, you know, you go to the movie The Secret, which was this very high-level, fluffy movie about the law of attraction. And they said, ask and it is given. No, it's more than just ask and it's given. It's to me, command into the law. You command into this law out there what you want, and you live, breathe, and do everything in alignment with that, and then that experience will be yours. Will it be instantaneous? Probably not. It could be, but it's probably not. My experience would say that it goes until you've been able to change your mental atmosphere, the thought atmosphere that you've got around something. So, for example, take relationships. If you take the thought atmosphere that most people have about relationships, it's not a real healthy one. Talk to someone about relationships. What? Relationships suck. They're hard. I've had thousands of them. I've been divorced 4 or 5 times. I hear that all the time. It doesn't matter where you are, but until we change the perspective that a relationship is a meaningful exchange of 2 people who view themselves as whole, who desire to share a path together while they unfold themselves to be the greater individualization of themselves, now we're talking about what a relationship is. This one is, it's from the book, The 4 Agreements, and you can't ever forget this one. We can never take anything personally. No one is ever doing thing to us. They're only doing it for themselves. Do you hear that? People are only doing it for themselves based on what they value at that time. There are no victims. Only victims are when we make ourselves the victims. And so I was sitting thinking about all the gazillion stories I could tell you about all these things, and I've got a zillion of them. I'm going to go back to one of my favorite ones, because if you don't know me, I'm pretty cocky. I'm pretty arrogant in that I like who I am and I like what I'm about. And even when I was not very aware, I was not really aware when I was a young man. Everyone who's been to Agape knows I've told the stories that Lee was not the Lee that you know today. I can remember being at a party, and I remember it really clearly. It was a party in 1974. And Gene and I were there, and we just got Meatloaf's new album, Bat Outta Hell. And Bat Outta Hell is like one of my all-time favorites. And so we're going along, Bat Outta Crank, and they come to this song, I want you, I need you, but I'm never going to love you. Now, that's my least favorite Meatloaf song because I didn't like the lyrics. I never bought into the fact that I need someone. And I can remember being at the party, and all these people would be talking to us about this, and I said, no, I don't need my wife. Well, you're going to get divorced. And then Gene and I, we were talking last night when we went out to dinner with Stephen. We were sitting there talking, and we were talking about when we got married. Everyone thought we would be the first to be divorced. Because I'm too cocky. I'm too self-centered. But you see, the thing that I didn't realize that I got that if I didn't love myself more, if I wasn't whole and perfect, how could I love Gene more? I got that. Now, I wasn't demonstrating that, but the foundation was already there for me. And so here I am almost 44 years later, married to the woman of my dreams, having the life of my dreams, having gone through all of these stages of development. So people look at Gene and I and they think, well, you've got the greatest relationship. Well, we do. But let me tell you, we had to learn all this stuff I'm talking about today. We learned this piece by piece by piece by piece by piece. And then it's not just about learning it. You've got to actually do it. You've got to constantly be practicing it all the time. And then you're going to fail. You know you're going to fail. You're going to slip. And it's not a failure. You're just missing the mark. And when you miss the mark, you get back up and you start all over again. And you realize, here's the key. Relationships are an eternal process. They're not something that is, we're there. Here we are, Mr. and Mrs. Wonderful. No, that doesn't work. Or Mr. and Mr. Wonderful, or Mrs. and Mrs. Wonderful. It doesn't work that way. So I have a son. I have two sons. One's in the back on there, and the other one's in Denver. And my son Matthew is married to his partner Robert. And they're beginning the process of adoption. They're looking at their options there. And I had to use these principles to build a relationship with my son. Because when he hit 14 and he knew he was gay, his father didn't understand what that meant. And so there was a clash. Because here I am, I'm the alpha male of heterosexuality, and I now have the alpha male of gayness, and we're living in the same household, and I'm the father figure, so there was a complete rebellion. There was such a rebellion that he hated me, he never wanted to see me. When he left the house, he would never come back. Well, we've healed that. We're now best of friends. We can relate because of these tools. So he's on the phone with me, and he's sharing with me that they're going through the process. And he's saying about private adoption, what it means, and how much money's involved, and that. And he said, are you and Mom willing to help? And I paused. And he said something like, Dad, are you still there? I said, yeah. And I basically said to him, I said, there can be no question that we will help. Because the greatest gift that we've ever had were our two sons. So the greatest gift your mom and I can give you is the ability to have your own children. What's so funny is these two big alpha males, he's a bigger man than I am, Matthew. We're on the phone 1,500 miles away. I'm in the car, he's in the car, and we're crying our eyes out. Because there was the emotional connection that was there. And then I made a comment to him that this would be the greatest gift that you could give your mother. And then he starts, shh. Then I start, shh. Because you got to realize that underneath Gene's values, and I get this, being a mother, being of service is dormant right now until the grandchild comes. You see how knowing the values of your partner, knowing the values of your children, knowing the values of that helps you communicate effectively. But if you didn't know that, you'd be wishing and a hoping, and you're going to get it wrong as many times as you're going to get it right. So I could go on and on and on about this, but I'm not going to because I've given you so much. I would invite you to watch this talk over and over again. The slides will be embedded in the talk. Charles does that for us every week. So if you watch the talk, the slides will be there. You can focus on this. This would be a great talk. If you're in a relationship, sit down and talk to someone. I would highly invite you, if you're in a relationship or if you've not done your values, we have a workshop coming up on August 28th where you'll actually figure them out. I would highly advise you to sign up for that. Not because we want you to be a part of it, because it's something that will help you. So, as a minister, and I view a minister as a teacher, I invite you to come up to me and ask me, what do you want from Agape? What is it at Agape that we can do to support you in your spiritual growth? Notice I didn't say about making the service better. I didn't say about having different music or anything like that. I said, what is it we can do to help you personally, become more spiritually evolved and discover your truth? Because that is the one and only one relationship that matters. Let's pray. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.